Children of sex workers, how did you find out your mom/dad was a sex worker? My mom wasn't in sex work anymore when I was born, but she raised my older brother on money she got as a stripper. She worked customer service jobs my entire life. When I was around 7 or 8, I went to go do something on the family computer and I saw a Facebook message she sent to her friend referencing her days as a dancer. I was super excited upon reading this and confronted my mom, thinking she was a ballerina or something. She explained to me, in the most age-appropriate terms she could, that she was a stripper. Of course she didn't go into all the details until I was older. Deleted. My mom was a stripper trying to raise 4 kids. She would work nights, I would see strange outfits and shoes in her closet and her work bag, everything smelled strongly of cigarettes. I watched the movie Independence Day where Will Smith's wife was an exotic dancer and I somehow figured out what that was. One morning her and I were sitting at the kitchen table together eating breakfast, I was in 4th grade, and I asked her what her job was. She looked at me funny and I continued by asking her if she was a stripper. She asked me why I thought that and I explained everything I listed above. She then confirmed my suspicions and thought my dad, her ex-husband, spilled the beans to me. I assured her that was not the case and she asked me never to tell my 3 brothers. I never did. She eventually got out of this line of work and is now very successful. I'm proud of her and although I used to resent her for some of her choices, I understand now she did what she could to do to take care of her kids. My dad straight up told me he was a gigolo in Denver in the 80s, 30 years later. He had moved out there to get away from an abusive home life when he turned 18, and found that that was the best way to make ends meet. After 2 decades and of denial, it just is what it is. Mom was an addict, so was dad. They split and he was homeless. Mom was on welfare and dumpster dived for cash and was always broke. Looking back, I'm pretty sure she started turning tricks when I was around 1-2 ish. She'd get dressed up and disappear at night, leaving me alone. Later we moved closer to my grandmother, who rented a house for us and my heroin-addicted aunt shortly before we found out Gamma had lung cancer. Some other people moved in. I'd go in my mom's room for something and pretty quickly just stopped going anywhere near her room. Found sex toys, porn VHS, some latex stuff a couple times, walked in on a friend of hers naked in her bed with a hard-on watching porn in her room once when I was looking for her. I locked it away in that place that kids lock stuff away to forget so they can keep looking up to and loving their parents like the fucked up shit never happened. Eventually mom got a room a shitty motel some miles away and just spent more and more time there. Sometimes I'd only see her once or twice a week. When she was home, it was usually long enough to bring me a couple gas station burgers. She said it was to get away from the madness at the house and to be closer to work. I never asked what work, deep down I think I knew, but denial is a beautiful thing when you're 13, and convinced myself it was some store and she was more than happy to let me believe it. Eventually Gamma finally stopped suffering and dad decided to try and get his shit together. And I moved with him to the original town Gamma moved us away from. Saw mom all of maybe twice in about a year. Dad did not, in fact, get his shit together and I got shipped to Texas to live with an alcoholic aunt when I was 16. Mom and I stayed in very loose contact and talked maybe on a couple of holidays. I saw her once when alcoholic aunt shipped me back home for a week and I stayed with mom in that goddamn motel. Again, she'd disappear at night. One time I picked up the phone, thinking it might be her, but it was some guy. When I told him I was her daughter and I could take a message, he asked if I was into some mother/daughter stuff, laughed and hung up. That strung-out voice literally haunts my nightmares. Now I'm 40. Mom and I aren't close, but we're better than it was. She went to rehab and moved to her dream state and she lives in the Rockies. She's still clean and doing well. She has a little life and is comfortable. We text now and again, send pictures and I'll update her on my life if something big happens. I've seen her twice, once I went to her when I was 34 I think. It was a nice visit and neither of us attempted to talk about the past. I think we were both nervous of the other. Then she came to me a few years ago for my wedding. Mom was a straight-up meth whe, and I'm super fucked up because of it. My mum somehow had heaps of money before I was born but had no work history, and had an older gentleman friend buy her a house after my parents split. I finally got curious one day as a teen and asked if she was a sex worker as it was the only thing that explained all this. She flipped out at me for finding out and went apeshit at dad for telling me. He didn't, he was actually horrified. I worked it out as the agreement between my parents was that I was to never know. This was 17 years ago and our relationship is still strained because she thinks I'm judging her and that I think I'm better than her when I really don't care that she used to be a sex worker. Apparently once she got drunk and called my grandmother, on my dad's side, when she was still with dad and abused her for judging as well, when like me my grandmother had no idea about my mum's profession. Edit. Edited to correct one typo and add more info. I was raised by my grandparents on my dad's side because my mom was an addict and prostitute, and my dad was an addict who was in prison my whole childhood. I found out my mother was a prostitute when I was probably 13 to 14, when I got in a bad argument with my grandmother and she blurted it out. I took it surprisingly well for my age, but mainly because I barely had a relationship with her and already knew she was an addict, so it didn't catch me too off guard. My mom took me to those places up until I was 3 when my dad found out. I tried to suck his cock and when he asked me where I learned that I told him that I was working like mommy. He filed for emergency custody and there was a police investigation and it turns out I was being sold out too. I don't have any memories of it, but I started having night terrors when I was 2 and I think it might be related. My dad told me about all of it when I was 12. He sit me down and told me everything. I'm also in a couple of pornos on the internet, but the originals have been taken down and I don't wish to look for the videos or see them. The woman admitted to it on my adoption papers. One of the local proceeds I occasionally help found out her mother was a stripper and hand job specialist in one of the numerous Spanish clubs when becoming a teenager and being taken to the club and doing homework or chatting to other girls in the back during the mother's shift. She also found out a couple of her aunts did more than stripping at other clubs in both Spain and Germany. She was gradually encouraged to get involved herself and even start escorting. Spain's age of consent was 13 up until 2016. She had a child of her own at 16 and then was encouraged by clients to escort in the UK as the money is better with a much bigger client base. The child found out her mother was a prossy during a homework argument with a babysitter who threatened that if she didn't do her homework and eventually finish school with top grades she would end up doing the same work her mother, grandmother, and some grandaunts do. My best friend's mom used to do exotic dancing before he or his siblings were born. She, like many people in Hollywood, found it hard getting a break and stripped to pay her bills. This moved on into other things and eventually she started dating one of the regulars, fell in love, got married, and moved off into the wilderness, living a pretty modest and Spartan lifestyle. Think they were married for a few years before they decided it wasn't going to work out and had an amicable divorce splitting their assets. The caveat being that the guy she was married to was absolutely loaded, heir to a corporate empire, kinda rich, and just decided to live simply despite his wealth. She ended up getting a few million out of it, met my friend's dad not much later on and had a family. As I recall, she was pretty open about it with my friend when we got older. To say the least, he was pretty shocked, but empathized with what she had to go through and never belittled her for it. When I was in the service, my friends found out I'd never been to a strip club and dragged me to one of the scummiest joints in town. They bought me a lap dance from a very pregnant stripper who just happened to be the wife of my team leader. I'd met her several times, but I honestly don't know if she recognized me. She was surprisingly flexible and vigorous. I mean, she wasn't like ready to pop, but you'd know she was pregnant even if clothed, and I was surprised at what she could still do. But the whole time I'm just thinking, geez, I hope your kid never finds out how you kept the baby weight off. And now I can't enjoy strip clubs. FYI, he later divorced her when he found out she was pulling in extra cash by banging guys at the club, even while pregnant. Edit. 2 things. First, I can't believe this is the comment that's gotten me the most votes for anything I've ever had on Reddit. No, actually I can completely believe it, in a sad way. Second, I mentioned this story to my partner tonight, who I've been with over 16 years now, and she asked what strip club it was. When I told her, she's like, oh, I used to go there for the cheap drinks. And that's nowhere near the skeeviest place in town. I don't have much strip club experience. That place was just so sad and depressing, I just assumed it couldn't get worse, but I guess I was wrong. Not my parent. I was in 4th year, which is sophomore for Americans I think. Anyway, there's a website in Ireland for escorts. A student was on the site and noticed a ma'am of one of the girls in our year was on this website offering her services. If that wasn't bad enough, she was using said daughter's name as her escort name. One thing I've never been able to wrap my head around is how can you let some random guy do whatever he likes while calling you by your kid's name? The student obviously shared it around the school, and even though the daughter was a dickhead, I always felt really bad for her. Nothing she had done deserved that kind of attention or humiliation. My older cousin used to do it until her 12-year-old son's classmates found out about her account. Kids that age can be brutal, and he was bullied pretty hard for it. They eventually had to move school districts because it was so bad. Her baby daddy ended up winning full custody after the bullying happened again at the new school for the same reason. Her son was severely depressed and started to self-harm. Both her son and baby daddy moved halfway across the country and are doing much better now after ceasing all contact with her. All in all, it's a very sad situation, sad face. Mom brought a sex slave home. He was kinda cool, kinda weird as fuck. He would cook us dinner and do dishes and drive us around. Wonder what he's up to now. Probably getting bossed around by someone else. Edit BDSM situation sex slave. What's hard for you to resist if you see it on a restaurant menu? An appetizer sampler platter. I love apps but don't want just one. A French dip sandwich. When I was in Ireland, I kept seeing a goat cheese, walnut, beet salad that was basically mixed greens with walnuts, sweet red beets, and goat cheese crumbled on top with a delicious balsamic vinaigrette. I swear, I had never seen it before on a menu or even knew about that sorta salad. But, then again, the only restaurants my family and I ever went to were Middle Eastern/Eastern European kebab places. I'm Georgian, so maybe those salads are a popular thing and I've just never been exposed to it. Either way, I saw it on so many menus in Dublin and my god, I craved that salad for so long after. The sweet and salty mix of the goat cheese and the beets, with that delicious vinaigrette and the addition of the walnuts. Man. That combination of flavors was made in heaven. I had never had goat cheese before and I suddenly was always craving it. Eggs Benedict at a breakfast/brunch place. Country fried steak. The mark of a good breakfast place is how good theirs is. I went to a diner in the middle of nowhere, Florida, and ordered it. When the waitress told me it would be a minute because the chef was still cutting steaks, I knew it was gonna be dope. And it was. Crab rangoons and enchiladas. Tiramisu, cream brle, tacos al pastor, jalapeno poppers. Garlic fries. Edit, thank you all for the upvotes and happy cake day wishes. Gyros. Key lime pie, if I haven't tried it from that location, it'll be ordered, tasted, and ranked. Burrata. Mozzarella sticks. French onion soup. Onion rings. Love me some crispy, hand-cut, beer-battered onion rings. Edit, for the people asking how does hand-cut make a difference, I already answered in one of the thread, but to put it here, I just put hand-cut to make sure it's fresh, shop-made onion rings, not the frozen and processed onion rings bullshit. Sure, most restaurants probably use the processed ones, but there are still good ones who make their own from scratch. Curly fries. People who cheated in a relationship, why? Because I was a dickhead who thought sex was the same as affection. There are reasons for that, but I'm not going to make excuses. That said, I've been faithful for 25 years. Young and dumb, not really ready to commit, and too much of a coward to break it off. I walked in on her with a coworker, so I revenge cheated with someone close to her. It created a triangle of emotional damage. But I learned how to process the bad stuff in a healthier way once the dust settled from the three of us destroying each other. Because I'm an idiot. Because I didn't have the emotional intelligence to end it like a considerate human being. I had no morality or ethics. Lots of insecurities. Lacked emotional control. I was selfish. I can think of 100 reasons why I did, but in the end I was just selfish. I do not have many regrets in my life, but that one will stay with me forever. A life lesson learned the hard way. I was the other guy. A woman I'd known for a couple of years was becoming increasingly disillusioned with her husband. He was drinking too much and getting more and more emotionally and verbally abusive. We had a 2-month fling because she wanted to feel valued again. She dumped me and told me she was going to make a proper go of her marriage. She gave him 6 months to quit drinking or she was going to kick him out. He just got worse. The final straw was when he drunkenly dragged their eldest kid out of bed at 2 a.m. to berate him about the state of his bedroom. She kicked him out. A week later we hooked up again. 22 years and 2 grown-up children later our fling is going quite well. Reason given was, one last fling before the ring. Bartender here, and I have had this conversation with so many cheaters. What I can tell you, is people who cheat in relationships, often have other cheat-type issues. Often trying to make a fast buck by screwing others over financially, gambling issues, or other dramatic/toxic maneuvers. They often can have a need to compete, or outdo the people they are closest with. They often are terrified of the other spouse cheating on them first. They often present sizable egos, but are secretly terrified of being judged by others. Not your problem. People almost never cheat up, but almost always cheat down. If they are with a clever, responsible, organized spouse, they cheat with a dumb irresponsible hot mess. If they are married to a textbook perfect skinny church-going Barbie doll, they often cheat with a curvy, thick dark-mouthy girl with tattoos, not that there is anything wrong with that type. But they are going for the opposite of what they married and present publicly. I can tell you, if they never have cheated, they are less likely to cheat when the opportunity presents itself, but once they do cheat, it gets easier every time. If they cheated once, they will be more likely to cheat again. The people getting cheated on, it's never their fault. They couldn't have done anything better than they already did. I see amazing people get cheated on, it truly has nothing to do with them. It's the cheater's own issues that determine if they cheat, nobody else's. People often cheat to feel powerful, in a world where they feel powerless. People often cheat because of mommy/daddy issues. Military guys are often encouraged to cheat by their buddies, because those guys don't want to be the only guys cheating, or to be ratted out. If everyone cheats, then they can pretend they are not the asshole because everyone is doing it. If your person cheats on you, don't leave them for the act, leave them because they are selfish, and they chose the act over the importance of you, and your family. And that level of stupidity is a real red flag of things to come. But there is one thing even more toxic you must run from. The person who never cheated, but said they did to hurt you. End number X200B. In my years of bartending, several women came to confront me about my affair with their husband that never happened. No, these women were not trying to trick me, or being paranoid. I confronted the men, and they had told their wives they were sleeping with me. Men also tried hitting on me, and I ignored it, and they told all their buddies they slept with me, or could have slept with me and didn't. These kind of rumors could have ruined my very healthy relationships, and I'm lucky my partners knew better. This weird toxic shit of pretending to cheat should be the biggest red flag of when to run from a relationship. I was young, selfish, and broken. 25 YRS in the military working away. I never once cheated on my wife. After leaving the military I was so busy working and earning we started to grow apart. We both knew it, but crucially I buried my head in the hopes things would get better. She had a brief affair, citing the gap between us as the reason. She never once talked to me or tried to improve things, but then again neither did I. The difference being I still loved my wife, but she fell out of love with me. Look after what you have, as you never know when it will be gone. He had a side chick who was my best friend. She thought we were in a poly relationship, but it was just him who wanted us both, so I cheated on him with her and stole his side chick. Edit. I told him I'd be okay with it if it wasn't just him who got to date my best friend and I, and that us girls also got to date. He told her I was okay with it just being him dating us, even though it was really me she wanted to date and he was just an extra since I was dating him at the time. I stayed with her for a while, but we mutually decided we were better as friends and are still best friends to this day.